Sure can, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I will cut up the recording to make this more logical. And I didn't want to do any work ahead of time because the idea behind these sessions is that we work together on something and we sort of build it out. So I haven't done any sort of pre-work. I've got a couple of examples, and we'll go through what a sort of journey map is and what it should be, and then we will very quickly just make one.
Cool.
And we'll probably finish a little early, unless we have a whole bunch of people asking a whole bunch of questions, which is totally fine. That can happen. And yeah, there we go. So let us start with what it is and what the differences are between so there are a couple of different it's all under the umbrella of sort of a journey map, but there's a couple of different terms that people use. So some people call it user journey. So user journey has also kind of been the term user journey originally comes from the sort of agile world of developers saying, you know, this list of requirements is my user journey. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a visual map, a journey map. There are other things called impact maps, which I won't really get into. I think we'll just stick to user journeys. Essentially, there's a bunch of different templates, but the core logic is that you have a map that explains step by step how you get from awareness to sale to after sale in a very logical sort of step-by-step process. So the example here is, you know, awareness. Facial hair is an aesthetic choice. I don't know that I want a full beard, so I need to decide on my preferred look and grooming regimen. So you realize there are so many options on the market. Which one is right for the look I want at a price I can afford? And then internalization. Should I go with the name brand razor that's more expensive, or a smaller brand that suits my budget? Then visualization. I can get cheaper, effective razors delivered to my door when I need them. Okay, so in marketing, you'd call this moment zero, the point at which in your mind, or maybe decide as moment zero, it's the point at which you decide in your mind that you're going to buy it. You've decided that this is I'm going to buy an Isuzu truck, or I'm going to buy this kind of razor. And then I'm pleasantly surprised and I share my excitement with my peers. So that's a very nice kind of standardized way of doing it. It doesn't always end up like that. And the way that I've done journey maps in the past is as a way of auditing an existing process. So that's the kind of thing I wanted to show you today. The data that I have for us is, I've got a chat. The data that I have for us is very made up. It's basically just an example of an experience of the first time using a Leap card. So in Dublin, we have these, I've got one here, these little green cards that you use for everything from trains to buses to the trams, or Lewis, as they're called here. I've got 3 things that I need to just finish writing off here. So this is basically, I arrive in Dublin, I go to the tourist office. The tourist office tells me I need to get a Leap card at the nearby grocer. I walk to the grocer, wait in line, get the card. I get to the bus stop. I get onto the bus and the driver is frustrated because I don't know how the card works. He instructs me to hold my card to the reader. The reader doesn't work very fast and I pull my card away. That's the wrong 2. English is my only language. The driver is even more frustrated and asks me to hold it onto the reader again. I'm now holding up the bus, so there's a line behind me and I'm getting frustrated. I get off the bus at my stop, and then on my way home, I lose my card. And so the cycle continues and I buy a new card and put even more money on it. Okay, so I haven't got a title for these 3. So this one should be, I'll just call this frustrated. I get off the bus. These are just sort of little titles so that you don't have to read all the text all the time. Cool. And then the fields, I haven't I haven't put proper data in here because I haven't really thought about it, but it doesn't really matter for what we're going to do, because all I want to do is I want to show you how to get this very quickly into Figma using an awesome plugin. So there's other stuff that we'll need to do, and I'll be asking you guys to just help me sort of decide on how we map this out. But the most important thing, first of all, is just to get the information in. So the way that this plugin works, it's called Sheet Sync, and there's a couple of different ones. The one that I'm using is called Google Sheet Sync. There's quite a few that do the same job. But in order to get this in, what you have to do is you have to use your the titles on your columns. So number, title, description, and fields with the Z. So we're going to want, and it needs to first figure out where it's going to sort of anchor to. So we want something called hashtag number, hashtag title, what did I say? Description. Is that what I said? Yeah. And fields. With the Z. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to make this a component. And you can see what I'm pressing on my keyboard on the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, if you are wondering about that. Now I need to make this auto with the text. This component is still quite large, so I'm going to auto layout it. We usually work at Sunlick. Most of the things we do, we work in like the sort of factor of 2 numbers, so 8, 16, 24, 32. So I'm going to do 8. And I've actually got my what's called the big nudge. So if you go to your settings here and you look at preferences and you see nudge amount, you can change your nudge amount. So my nudge amount is 8 instead of 10. I would highly recommend that because it just makes grids a lot easier. It makes everything just a whole bunch easier. So I'm going to say this is 8, and if I press shift up here, it's also going to go to 8. It's the same thing. And you can also, if you wanted to, you could also just use maths here. So if you wanted this to be twice as big, if this was a scarier number, you could say 8 times 2, and that would work. You can just do maths right in the columns, because everything is, this whole system is web-based. It's basically a website. It's not actually a fully fledged yeah, it's not a program. It's a website that's pretending to be a program. Like you can actually look up, if you press Command Option I, you'll actually get your Chrome elements sort of pop up that you would get in Chrome, because this is literally just a web app that's been wrapped into an application, which is why it's exactly the same great experience on Chrome versus as a standalone app. So we've got our component here, and I'm just going to run the plugin. So how many did I have? I had 13. So we will need 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. Cool. And then I'm going to go plugins. Save plugins, Google Sheets Sync. Now I have run this before just to test it. So it is already pasted in, but if you don't have it, just copy it from here. Make sure that in your share options, it's anyone with the link can view at least. You don't need it to be editor. And go fetch and sync. And what that does is it builds out all of your content for you so that you don't have to do anything, which is pretty cool. And then we can start actually building this thing out. So I'm going to make it an auto layout, set it like that, and then I'm going to decide a couple of things with it. So the first thing I'm going to decide is our description needs to have a set width. That way we know that our column is going to have a set width because the description is always going to be longest. So this object is going to be defined by the fixed width of the column. So this description column needs a fixed width. So right now you can't do that. You can't change the width. You have to pull it. And if you guys know of any better ways of doing anything I'm doing, please feel free, because I'm not like a wizard. Like,
just curious. So you had to duplicate your component 13 times. If you had like a larger data set, is there a faster way to like make as many instances as you need? Or do you literally just have to go Command D, 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 D?
So I have done such a thing before. The way that I did it, and there might be a smarter way, is I just did that.
Okay.
Because once you,
I'm like, it's fast enough. That's fast enough. But
yeah, I mean,
you can't like set a number or anything.
No, I did a video on my YouTube channel a couple of years back where I did charts comparing how many deaths per type of energy consumption. So like nuclear energy, by far the lowest death counts, and then coal by far the highest. Coal was like 100, it's like 100,000 deaths, whereas nuclear was like 4 per whatever amount of energy. And so I needed a graph that was like 4 versus 100,000. How do I show that? Figma crashed while I was trying to do that. So what I ended up doing is I there's a site called IcoMoon, which is a wonderful, wonderful icomoon.io. It's a wonderful site where you can basically just throw SVGs at it and it will give you a font with whatever SVGs you need, similar to what Font Awesome does. So Font Awesome is a font that is made up of icons, which are a lot easier to process for some reason. Don't ask me to explain why. So, you know, all of these icons have like a particular code. And so what I did was I wrote that icon. I sort of, it's almost like wingdings where you're just replacing like different letters. So I replaced it with like 1, 2, 3, etc. And then I just wrote 100,000 ones into the column, and it came out with.
Did you write those 100,000 ones manually?
No, of course not. The first thing I did was I said, okay, each skull is only going to represent 20 deaths, because even then it was too many. But yeah, that's another way of doing it, I guess.
Okay, creative cheating.
Creative cheating, absolutely. So we've got our scenario and our actor. Those can probably just be an auto layout as well, and we'll give them a decent padding. Then we'll combine these and give that a decent padding. We should probably, what else should we have on this page? Probably a title, hey? Seems good. What else do you think we need on this page?
I would always check my reference and copy.
I had a question, Mitch. So do those layers that you have as your identifiers, the text layers with the hashtags, do they have to be on the top level, or can they be within other structures? So for example, let's say you wanted to potentially split that box into separate boxes but have it all as one component. Does the plugin recognize that? Can it read down levels?
Yes. Basically what it does is it's just a script that's going through your page in a very static way. So it's just reading. So as long as you have them in the right order, you should be okay. I have run into issues, especially when you're sort of copying 100 things and pasting them, where you're not going to get the order that you want. So the more complexity you add to it, the more you're going to find you're not going to get the answer you're looking for, and you're going to have to manually tweak. So this example works really well in terms of like working from scratch. If you're trying to sort of retrofit this into something where you have an existing design and those layers are not going to be in the right order, especially because auto layout dictates your layer order, you're going to have some problems. So if I, so for instance, if I have, so let's answer your question, Devin, that you had previously. What if I have a whole bunch of those? How does that react to, how does that react? So all it does is it goes through the list and it's just finding, it's just sort of matching up to 13, and then it just loops back into 1. But what we can do is we can test. Let me see if I can do this. So if I've got a component for number and title, and then another component for description and fields, and then I take this, put them in an auto layout, and I flip the position of them, and then I make that a component, and then I take that and I paste it. Okay, let's see how this works. Google Sheet Sync, fetch and sync. Cool. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's still in the right order, and it still seems to be working just fine. But if I put this one on top, oh, sorry, that is Illustrator shortcuts. Shortcut for Figma is that. There you go. So I put that one on top, and then I put this one on top, and then this one on top. So I'm just messing up the order in a really bad way. Right? Then what's going to happen is, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's find out. Yeah, so 10, 1, 2, 9, 3, 11, 4. So it's completely, it's good. So it's basically just running down the list and treating it as script. Just seeing it as code, basically. Which is a little problematic.
But I'm sure there's another app that would sort all your layers by
position on this,
by number
on the page.
or something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I don't think naming, I don't know if naming makes a difference. That's a good question. We should look at that, because this is 32, this is 31, this is 30. If I rename this 1, I rename this 2, and I rename this 99. Let's see. Oh no, I need to rename this ZZ99, because if it's going alphabetically, it would go 1, 2, 99, and then F, because that would be the alphabetical order. So let's call it ZZ9 and see if this comes out as 3, 13 or something else.
I mean, it's good information to have, but probably start fresh.
Yeah, best thing to do is start fresh. So it started off with 10. So this one is frame 32. Where are you? You're at the bottom and you are number 12, but on the list you're, oh yeah. Yeah. So it's going in terms of the it's just going in terms of the order. So it doesn't matter what it's called as much as the order that it's in. Cool. Awesome. Okay. That's a fun aside. Maybe we should have some columns in here, so some lines. So I'm going to take this line and I'm just going to chuck it in here. Now, if I duplicate this by itself, it should be okay. Is there a faster way of doing this, do you think? I don't think so.
So maybe a quicker way to do it potentially would be to have that integrated into the component itself. Like if you had maybe more time, you would have component props for, you know, show left line, show right line, but you're kind of getting into slightly hacky territory, or it's becoming like a single purpose component that can never be used for anything but that. But hey.
I did have the idea of, so the other part that we need to do of this is that they do tend to, a lot of them do tend to do these sort of emotion lines, or I don't know what you would call them. These, how happy is the person in this journey, right? So, getting your card and feeling like you're going to be successful, awesome. And then like when everything starts messing out, you go, oh no, the world is against me. So we might want to do something like that. And that could get really complicated, because essentially what you'd have to do is you'd have to say, there are 5 possible positions on this side, and there are 5 possible positions on this side. How do we, and then we'd have to make like every possible
God, no.
variation. That seems kind of crazy. What I would rather do is I would rather just make the line as such. And if we're worried about it interfering with our auto layouts, all we would do is give it a fixed position. So there's a fairly new thing, this absolute position function. You can just add it in, put it there, and there you go. Easy. And then if we wanted to, we could just cut this and put it on our line if we wanted to be similar to what everyone else is doing, again with absolute position. And well, this won't work because, why won't this work? Because the vector line is actually underneath. That's why. There you go.
Gosh, I always forget about absolute position. I think it's just I've become so conditioned on making a frame, pasting it in, then doing the kind of move with spacebar trick and hope nothing like snaps into place or breaks. I forget, it's such a handy little thing that's just quietly there.
What is move with spacebar?
Oh, I don't want to encourage any bad practice, but
it's okay. I jumped into Figma like just after they introduced the absolute positioning, so you're not
oh
going to
wow,
taint me that way.
Look at you. So
Yeah.
the old way of doing it, well, there was 2 ways. So you create a frame, you paste something into the frame, which has maybe an auto layout inside. And if you drag while holding spacebar, it ignores the kind of snapping into whatever's beneath it. So traditionally, if you drag something over an auto layout and you can interact with it, it snaps in. But if you hold spacebar, it will float in the frame as if it was absolute positioning. And then there was the old trick
That's
of
actually
like
a handy trick.
I don't know if they still have that. Oh, they do.
You can do that. Yeah, no, I completely abuse it.
It just pulls it out of the auto layout, basically.
Yeah, it keeps it it keeps the constraints within the frame rather than what's inside the frame. And then there used to be the old trick when you needed to put an X on the top right of a box. I think it was some sort of like zero. You had to make a 0 height. Oh, let's not go into that. That was the dark days.
The spacebar trick is handy though. That
is cool.
Generally, it's handy, yeah. But this absolute positioning is definitely like the way to go for like most cases.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if you have auto layouts within auto layouts, so right now this frame 18 is an auto layout that's just grouping this actor scenario with the bottom bit. If I go into that auto layout by pressing enter, I then see I have 2 auto layouts selected, this one here and then the actor scenario one. So if I drag this in, it's going to want to put it in frame 18, right? So now frame 18 includes this, this, and this. But what I actually wanted was I wanted it to be between actor and scenario. So what you do there is you hold command and then it drops it directly into that.
Wow, cool.
I didn't realize. I'm glad I taught you something, JB. That's cool. I didn't think that you would know that. I didn't think you would not know
Oh, there's loads of things I don't know. With
that.
these are very like particular use cases. That's awesome.
Um, that's pretty cool. So, what else do we want on our map? Do you think?
So we have our squares, we have our stages, the emotions.
Our fields.
What I would usually put in at this point are like kind of some key quotes. So from a particular moment, like is there something the person says in that scenario?
That's cool. We can do that. I would be inclined to just chuck all of this until the very end. And I think when I did this last time, I just didn't have this line because it was very sort of all over the place and didn't really help me. It didn't really help me do what I wanted to do. So what I could do is I could take this and I could make an auto layout like that. Would I want to do that over and over again for 13 different items? I don't know, maybe, yeah, I think it's fine. Maybe we can make a new type of object for quotes. So something that has like one of these. That's actually a decent one, isn't it? Not create component, but rather outline stroke. And just make that like a, I don't know.
Another thing I've seen is like highlighting something that was particularly good or particularly bad about whatever the interaction was at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's nice. I really like that little icon.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lovely way to highlight that.
yeah, so your little so we've got these little quotes, and then another thing that we could potentially do is for lack of a better term, your actionables. So your opportunities and what's the other one? Opportunities and
Pain points.
Pain
pain
points.
points. Yes, that's it.
Oh yes.
So I don't know. So I've loaded in the reason I'm able to find assets is I've loaded in an icon set from it doesn't matter. Let's see if they have anything for pain. Printer is a great example of pain.
A pin makes sense.
A pin does make sense. So sticking with our heavy icon set, that's probably a good one. So if I was doing this in a better way, what I would probably do is I would make this set by itself as a component, and then I'd put it on here. So I'd make an object of that and an object of that, and then merge these two together as a variant. And then I'd take one version of that and put it on here.
Hold the space. Absolute position.
Do we want to do absolute position here?
I will say, but this is exactly kind of an issue that I come into with my Figma files is like a nice Figma file with components that make sense requires a little bit of forethought. Otherwise you end up with this like, oh shit, I should have done it this way. And then you're like, do I now take the time to redo it and make it correctly, or do I just keep moving?
From what I have experienced, it always makes sense to do it at least a little bit correctly. Like the naming of things, you can always sort of fix that later. That's fine. But in terms of making a component, I think that's probably worthwhile. So I'm just going to, having said that, I'm just going to name this like a pin and quote, but not pin, because pin implies the thing, and what we actually want to imply is pain point. so that if that changes, we don't have to change the name. And then maybe let's add another variant and do opportunities.
I don't think there's an, okay, win. I was gonna say, I don't think there's an icon for opportunity. Poker chip.
Yeah, that could be, or trophy, I guess.
If you spell it right.
If I spelt it even remotely in the right way. That's okay. That's not, it ain't magic, but it'll do. Yeah, that could work. And then do we want to have different colors and whatnot? I don't know. Figma, Friends of Figma's sort of own internal sort of color palette is very simple, very simplified. They basically have these five colors, and no variations on them either. So for our purposes, we might stray from that in order to get what we need out of this. In fact, I already have, because I'm using emojis, which is not really a thing, but it's fine. Okay, so, and if you guys want to take this and use it for your own purposes, you're welcome to mess it up however you like. So because I'm giving it to you, I'm going to name a few things just so that it's not a nightmare for you. I'm going to call this a secondary card. And I'm going to call this a secondary icon. And that is called pain point, that's called quote, and that's called opportunity.
Opportunities.
Okay, and then if I want to change that, then I can. So if I've got a whole bunch of these, I go into that and just change it to opportunity or quote or whatever. If you guys are bored, you're welcome. Not that you look bored, but if you want to, you're welcome to join and play if you want to. I do want to say for the recording that I've got a couple of things in the gift bag. I know that our next session is going to be Jamie going through a bunch of stuff, which is going to be super fun. And he has a whole bunch of plugins. So I haven't got any plugins today. But Jamie's going to show you some awesome plugins next time. So it's a couple of awesome things here. WOMP, which is an awesome 3D tool, which you should definitely check out. I know people are really scared about 3D because of, I think a lot of it is because of Blender. You know, it's very like intense to get into Blender, but WOMP is so much fun. Very similar to Vecteri, which we talked about last week. Show Reels, which is an amazing collection of video show reels of UI designers. A wonderful article about holistic design. Oh, I messed up my thing. Figma to Webflow, which is a free course on webflow.com, which you can have a look at. It isn't what it looks like. It looks like it's a plugin, but it's not really a plugin per se, but have a look at the course, it's interesting. Free UI kits in UI Garage. And then lastly, and most importantly, I've written out a form which is for the next big piece of work that I would like us to do, which would be finding charities, NGOs, green technology companies that we can work with. And it's not a long form, it's just 4 or 5 questions, just asking them to get in touch. So if you have any friends who work for NGOs who need work done, whether that's UI design or posters or basically any visual work that can be done in Figma, we would be happy to talk to them about it. Not in a money kind of way, because we can't make money for anything that we're doing. And I've outlined all of this in the document. So if you know anyone that would like to get some free UI work for a good cause, then let them know and we will get in touch with them.
Yeah. Sorry, what is the plugin that you're using for the Google Sync? Sync to Google? Sync to Figma to Google Sync? What's it called?
Sync to Google Sync. It's called Google
Google
Sheets
Sheets
Sync.
sync.
Yes. For those who arrived late, I'll do a quick recap of what we're doing. We're using Google Sheets Sync to sync to this example user journey content, which I very loosely made up. Usually when you do this kind of thing, it's like a month of research and talking to lots of people and all sorts. So I just made this up. This is essentially my first journey with the Leap card. Taking this content and using Sheets Sync to do some magic where you duplicate it the amount of times in terms of the data that you have. So if you've got 13 items, you do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. You select that bunch and you go fetch and sync. And there you have it. All of them now take on the content that you had in Google Sheets Sync, which is kind of magic and kind of exciting and gives you a lot of opportunities to be very lazy, which I love. So
Yes.
yeah, that is the way.
It's not laziness. It's work smarter, not harder, right?
Sure.
I was just thinking this would be so great for so many situations. Like even for just the journey map here, I'm sure we've all been in the position where we just spent ages like typing out like all into every little box, all these things, and actually constructing it within Figma because we know it's going to have to end up in layout. I really like the idea of separating the work to like a more sort of logical workflow, but then knowing that you'll have that output like synced out. I could see that really working well for the likes of tables as well, which are always a nightmare traditionally in Figma.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're there like every single cell, like entering things, and you just kind of give up halfway and you just go, oh, placeholder data, let's go.
Absolutely. I mean, even for weird little internal things, even weird little internal things like I had to do this morning I was doing a bunch of notifications that a user could potentially have on the app that I'm working on. And I used exactly the same thing because it's, it's like, am I going to copy and paste the same thing 20 million times, or am I going to just click 3 buttons and get on with my life and spend more time thinking about, strategy and spend less time thinking about Figma? Like Figma doesn't want you thinking about Figma. They want you thinking about the strategy and how to make awesome products and, none of, so these little guys are really small, so I'm going to make them a bit bigger. So to do that, I'm just going to, so that's not the master. This is the master.
No, don't mind me. I'm just like fooling around.
Please feel free. Anyone is welcome. No one's gonna, anyone on the call, I've in the chat, you'll find a link to this page and you can come on and play around. I won't be upset. And if you want to click on any of these things and find out what they are, you're welcome to do that. Yeah, and if you have any suggestions on where we can take this from here, it's very much a collaborative thing. I don't have all the answers, so feel free.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so great. I do love a good old emoji. They're such a versatile element.
Yeah, I do. Jamie, I don't know if you want to maybe make them a bit more like sort of realistic, because there's quite a few that are crying where the guy he really shouldn't be so sad about things. Is there a one called meh? I think there is one. If you type in meh, yeah. There's one that's meh that's just like whatever. I couldn't care less. Face with diagonal mouth. Yeah. I see the trains and buses. Actually, when I see trains and buses, I'm excited about that. I go to the tourist office. Okay, so what I've done is a mistake. What I should have done is I should have gone back to my data sets and pasted it in here and then gone back and resynced it. But I'm not going to do that because it's gone too far. If I
was going to say, do you have to like run it every time to reflect changes, or is it so it's like synced rather than linked?
Right? No, you have to. No, it's not really synced. It's pushed. It's like
Yeah,
Can you-
but if you make any changes in the Excel or in the Google Sheet, it's not going to push into Figma. You
No,
have to resync. Okay,
you have to resync. Yeah.
that's good to know at least.
Yeah, there's basically no plugin that can sort of work without an action from the user first, if that makes sense. So
As you said, it's like it's a browser, not
yeah,
an app.
it is, you know, despite how awesome it is, it's basically just a document. It's a static document that just gets instructions. It can't sort of send things back to Sheets or send things back to any other plugin without your express action. So like even if you use, for example, there's one called colorblind, right? If I take colorblind, I'm not going to get great results with this because the colors here are pretty decent. But if I take colorblind, it goes create views. And it's going to create all the different color blindness views for all the different types of color blindness so that we can see how bad the situation is. And I would highly encourage you to have a look. If you're doing a sort of look and feel, this is a great way to just check that you're not being completely crazy.
I'm impressed that the Irish flag comes through regardless of how colorblind you are.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder why that is.
I think it's a glitch. That has to be a glitch, right?
But you see, so, oh, you know why? Because it's an image.
Is it an image?
It's an
Okay.
image.
Yeah.
Good catch, Devin. Yeah.
I was like, wait, I thought if you were like red, green colorblind, that would be a terrible flag.
Well, maybe, yeah. But if I then go in and sort of change something here, none of this is going to update because it's just
Copy paste, yeah.
yeah, it's like one-time instructions. I don't know if there's anyone on the call who can explain that better. That's my understanding.
I mean, makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Sorry. No. Okay, great. So let's get some of these. So we were previously making, sorry, I'm going all over the place, but it doesn't matter. We were previously making these icons for these secondary cards. So let's maybe have some examples of what we could do here. So first I'm going to just detach this because this is still a, I think it's still a pair, no, it's not. I wonder why it's doing that then.
So me again. For the like quote one, for example, if you had the hashtag quote and that was in your Google Doc, can you run you can't sync just like one column into a separate component, right? It's basically going to go through the entire page and the entire doc. Or is it going to look at anything on your page that's, say, hashtag quote and then match it to whatever's in your doc if your doc has a hashtag quote?
So you can ask it to only work on the current selection. So update current page or update current selection only, or update the entire document. So last time I did this, I didn't do that properly. So here it's updated, but this one didn't update because you don't see the emojis and whatnot. But you know, that particular plugin has been sort of on and off for the last year. Like there were a couple of months where it wasn't working. But I think if you go into the plugins, you'll probably find 4 or 5 that do roughly the same thing.
Well, all of them are better than manual input, so we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to do Lorem for now.
It's sort of almost like like having variables for translations.
Yeah,
like it's really nice that something like this is available. Like there's actually I just keep thinking of all these times where this would have been useful, because I'm quite allergic to like laborious manual input jobs. If there's any way to automate that or make that just not a thing, I'm definitely down for it.
Oh, absolutely. So Okay, so now do I make this an auto layout or do I put or do I remove my auto layouts? What do you think? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this to go there, but still be usable as an auto layout.
Not that. Not that.
So I think if I hold
You
Command, I can just do
probably
that.
want the badge to be is it fixed in the component?
It is fixed and it is absolute positioned right now, I think. No, it's not, because this is not an auto layout, so it can't be absolute positioned.
There we go. Yeah, that's why I think that's why it was distorting.
So if I do fixed position, it then does distort, which is quite interesting. And then if I move this, I would have to move it up. And then all I
Will
would
that
need
not create problems if you're putting that now into a different auto layout? Because technically the pin is outside of the layout.
yeah, you would have to make sure that your so the
Right.
first issue
Ooh.
is whenever I stretch it like that, but that's okay. All I'll need to do is I'll say pin to top and pin to center. And then if I make this this longer, it should be okay. And if I just make this a bit wider, and then I desync them, I guess you would say. So make the top margin 40 and the bottom margin 16, then you'll have enough space. Then all I'll need to do is when I'm making an auto layout of multiple of these, I'll just need to make sure that my my space between items is enough to accommodate the size, but the size of these things never changes, so that's okay. Cool, so now I'm just gonna put one of these in each. Do you think this is a good way of doing it? Or should I have put it in the component itself? I don't know.
Forethought and planning? What?
Well, I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's better. Like the
I was
thing
gonna
is,
say you can two componentize sometimes.
yeah. I have been known to over componentize. And this isn't too bad. Like if it's 13 items, that's not the end of the world. We just auto layout all of these. Boom, boom, boom. Sometimes nice just doing repetitive stuff. And then what I can do
13
is,
times, not 30. Yeah.
yeah. And then I can press enter to select each item and then deselect the lines. And then I got one line left. There you go. And then auto layout down. There we go. And then let's put that right there. There we go. And then we have all of our opportunities slash threats slash whatever. And now because of the way that we've done this entire page, if we have a situation where there's 20 different opportunities, so you're going to the grocer and you find that there's actually a lot of opportunities, you can just go nuts with the opportunities and your page will just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, cool.
So that all kind of works. And if you find, now these aren't all pain points, so if you want, you can change this pain point to an opportunity and change this to a quote, etc., etc. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. What else do we need here?
I guess the line, but that's just a path that one would draw.
Yeah, I mean, when I've done these previously, I haven't been a massive fan of the line because it almost felt like, I don't know, it kind of felt a bit oversimplified, but maybe it is a good thing to do. maybe what we can do is, let's put a big margin at the bottom. But we want the lines to extrude, don't we?
Extrude.
Yeah, we want the, we want these
to cut
lines
through.
to cut through it. So we'd have to do that, and then we'd have to give up on our auto layouting of the page if we were to do that, and just give it a fixed height. That way we can control the height of this. Actually, we can just fill this to the page. And this.
Well, there's another way. So I encounter this problem sometimes where your auto layout starts to fail you when you want an intersection component. So sometimes what I do is I make the top layer a frame, and then if you paste this into the frame, and like I said before, use your spacebar to move freely, then you can have your lines go down the entire height of the container, and then this wavy line is not going to it's not going to be a problem because it's essentially floating over the auto layout.
Right.
And the only caveat is you just have to be mindful of the height, because your boxes can potentially underlay the wavy line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you do it by having it outside of the auto layout or as a absolute position, yeah, you can't. If I wanted to make 20 of these things, I would just have to adjust. So what I've done now is I've basically made the entire auto layout for the entire page an auto layout where everything inside of it is going to fill the container, and then these lines I would have to just ask to fill the container as well, which could be a pain in the butt if there were more than 10, as you can imagine. Just do it here.
You have more than 10.
I know I have more than 10. It was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Phil. There you go. Cool. That's fairly reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, considering, look how fast you put together. We're just fussing now about layout. We're not even thinking about the data.
Well, the thing
you could just
be in a
stick the line
position
to the
where,
bottom, right?
yeah, you could.
yeah, that works too.
I mean, look, the truth of it is, you don't really need to be this fast when you're doing something like this, because it's going to take you a month to get this data. Like the example that we have here is far too simple for a real customer journey, at least in terms of, nuance and detail. Even for something as simple as just go get a leap card and then lose it because you're an idiot. That's a very tiny journey. The journey that I did when I was working for a previous company was, how do I onboard someone to a new bank account? I mean, that's a multi-day, multi-document process with lots of different actors involved, and lots of potential death points, pain points. I keep forgetting pain points. Sorry.
Death points.
Well, no.
That's
so we
dramatic. It's not that bad to open a bank account.
we started saying, well, where are the different, yes, there's pain points, but where are the places where you can actually completely lose the customer and they can be so angry with you that they never want to come back? And trying to identify those points was really important. I think we called them, I can't remember what we called them. It wasn't death points. That's a great emoji. Well done. That's awesome. So yeah, my line isn't great, but doing something like that would be a good start. So you're welcome to come on and take this, copy this out into your own Figma project, make something better. Just take what we have here and yeah, mess it up, do whatever you like with it. I hope it's helpful. It's something. Yeah, anything else that we want to just to reiterate for folks who weren't here, we have a form for charities. If you know of a charity that would like to have some design work done for them, please go in and check out the form, send it to them and get them to brief us on something that we can do. We can't take money for the work that we do in this group, but we can certainly help our communities to do something nice. And we can make stuff for ourselves, I suppose. Jamie, you have a comment? Try an all frame for circle.
Oh, I was just fooling around seeing, well, when we were having distorting issue, I wondered, you know, if having using an auto layout frame instead of a rectangle would constrain it. But then we'd already solved that issue, so I quickly abandoned.
No, that's all good. That's all good. Awesome. Okay, well, I think I'll probably close off at 6. Is there anything that anyone would like to talk about or suggest, or anything that anyone would like to mention?
All good.
Okay.
All great.
Awesome. So last time we talked, just to sum up, in our last session, we talked about our mission, which is to learn, share, and connect with others in a safe space, help each other grow in Figma, help each other grow as designers, find ways to help the broader community. And the votes that came out were that we should have 90-minute sessions. I think we will, this was planned as a 90-minute session, but I think it depends on how many people are involved and how much we're doing in a session. So I've seen them often sort of go a bit shorter, but that's totally cool. We would love to talk about auto layouts and components. We did do that. We'd love to talk about plugins. We have done a bit of that today. And then I think next week or the week after, is it Jamie that you're talking?
Let's say both, but probably next week.
Okay, so this Zoom link you can keep, and we're going to actually have these sessions every week. So you can come in and join whenever you like. The one thing that we wanted to work on is we wanted to improve our Figma skills, a little bit of love for work on our members' portfolios, make reusable assets for ourselves. We would love to do is what we'd love to make time for is working for charities. That was the number one thing. So we hope we're getting there. We hope we're moving towards that. For those who are looking, for those who are looking for the recording of the last session, you might have noticed we are now using Zoom instead of Bevy, and that's because Bevy completely lost our recording. And after about a month of back and forth, they basically said, there's nothing that we can do. It's gone. Which meant that we weren't able to market the group as much as we would want to, but we're okay. We still have, after a quarter and only doing, this is our second session, we already have 47 people signed up to this session. So,
nice.
So we're doing okay. We need 3 more this weekend. So if you know any people, or if you have multiple personas, please feel free to get us over the line, and then we can keep doing this up until end of next year. That's it. I'm going to stop sharing. Do you guys have any other comments, any other questions?
Not tonight.
Okay. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you guys very much.
Cool.
Thanks
for sharing.
Thanks for the tip. It's very handy. Thank you.
Awesome, Abram. And if you guys want to catch us, I think we're thinking about potentially just being on Slack and not being on Discord, because we've seen a lot of people on Slack and not as many on Discord. So get us on Slack anytime, and yeah, we'd love to get your comments or answer your questions. Not that we're like crazy experts, but we can all help each other. So
Cool.
So if we all have a nugget of knowledge, then it
Yeah.
forms one expert.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Awesome.
Have a
Nice
great
evening.
evening.
Thanks, so.
You too.
Thanks, Mitch.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.